FM Radio, bringing you hot, smoldering topics on a weekly basis. Your participation is important.
Good morning and welcome to yet another edition of the Burning Issue. This is the Thursday edition, and we are delighted to be back. And I must say thank you very much to Cecilia Tresha, who sat in for me on Tuesday with the Tuesday edition of the Burning Issue. And good to be back. And get down with a lot of national issues in as far as the burning issues are concerned. Well, let me state here that we are also live on our partner radio stations, and these are iWave FM radio in Chingola, covering the rest of the Copper Belt, live also on Muchinga Radio, and in Chinsali, covering the rest of Muchinga province, live on Tuta FM in Mansa, and we are also live on Spice FM in Kabwe, covering the rest of Central Province. Here in Lusaka, we are live on 89.9 on 5FM radio, and also live on Wave FM radio in Mazabuka, covering the rest of Southern Province. Later on in the course of the program, I'll give you, our listeners, an opportunity to call in and interact with our guest. Let me mention also that 5FM radio turns 20 years of broadcasting. So is this particular burning issue. And I'm delighted to be a part of this milestone. I'm your host, Zachariah Banda. My guest today is the United Party for National Development, UPND research consultant in Mark Simuuwe. Welcome to the program, and always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much, Zach. Indeed, it is always a pleasure to be on 5FM, and I'm glad that I'm sharing the platform yet again.
Indeed.
Yeah.
We are as old as, almost as old as UPND.
Of course. That is the interesting part, and I think 5FM has played a very critical role in governance issues and providing a platform for dissenting views. And just, you recall last time I did mention that even when it was not practicable to do so, at the time UPND was in the opposition,
right,
you had the courage enough to feature those with dissenting views. And I think that is an epitome of a successful media house. And I think that is as it should be. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And so how have you been?
Oh, the Lord has been merciful. What is important is to be in good health first.
Right.
And also understanding that we anticipate a lot in 2024.
Right.
Especially given where we are coming from and successes in 2023, challenges in 2023, and how they are going to be resolved is an issue of 2024. And I think we are set.
Yeah. Now, talking about being set, I know that you are coming on this platform today, hours after the price of fuel having been increased.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, hitting the highest so far. And this is the time that people feel they are not aware of where we're going.
Okay.
Because then, they are asking questions of how are you going to manage the situation, and how are you managing the things we will have to increase in order to reduce. It's taking forever to begin to see that. But first of all, let's react to the fuel increase.
Thank you
in
very
terms
much.
of pricing.
Thank you very much, Zachariah. It is also important for us to, first of all, look at the background and then the state of affairs
Right.
on what is going on in the area of fuel.
Right.
You may wish to know that we're coming from the background where the country was found with over $700 million owed to oil marketing companies. In other words, you're basically talking about a situation that presented us a country in ICU with the aftermath of debt contraction effects being felt starting from 2019, coming up to date. I mean, the debt crisis. And then what we see is that this entire 700 million US dollars was accrued during the previous government. What is the effect of this?
First of all, how was it accrued?
How was it accrued? You may wish to know that government engaged various oil marketing companies to supply fuel in arrears. And then because we are headed, if you recall, we are headed for elections, just like in many jurisdictions, when you are going for elections, certain things, adjustments, cosmetic adjustments would be made. So this was made at a cost. And then you could hear them say, look, we are the cheapest in the region. I'm sure you recall. Yes. So when this was done, little did we know, many of us as citizens who were outside, that it was being done at a very serious cost, such that, assuming that they had won elections, immediately after winning elections, they were going to adjust the prices to ensure that this money was paid back. Unfortunately, it happened the way it happened, only to discover there's such a huge sum of money owed to oil marketing companies. That aside, it is important for me to go straight to the effects of the high price of oil in the world, without us wasting time discussing, first of all, the local issues. That 60% of what Europe consumes in terms of oil was coming from Russia. In 2022, the United States of America and the IMF warned on the crisis arising from the increase in the price of fuel worldwide. What we saw early last year was another announcement that we are likely to have a sharp increase, especially the eastern states. We are going to be badly hit because of disruptions in the Middle East. And what we have seen today is that this price of fuel has affected even countries that produce fuel. I was in China 2 months ago, and little did I know that they actually produce fuel in larger quantities, but they don't export. That's the information they gave us. And yet fuel is expensive. They are producing fuel in their biggest province called Xinjiang. They are producing fuel. Then what do we see? We see a situation where the demand for fuel or oil in general becomes very high. And as we speak today, it is indisputable that even the entire region, because what is abnormal, Zach, is where the people in the neighborhood are all doing fine. Then you are the only one who is doing badly. Then people will ask so many questions. But the circumstances that we've been confronted with present us with a picture of prices of fuel in the region. While Zambia was revising yesterday, Zimbabwe had already revised. Zimbabwe is selling at 43 kwacha. If you convert, that is $1.57 per liter. 43 kwacha, Zimbabwe. Democratic Republic of Congo, which is just nearby here, is selling at $1.49, which is equivalent to 41 kwacha. Tanzania is selling at $1.32. You remember that even last month I was on a radio program. I was mentioning that in Tanzania it was 4 kwacha plus, more than Zambia. This time it stands at around 2 kwacha plus, more than Zambia. Tanzania is at 36 kwacha per liter. Malawi is $1.50, which is equivalent to 41 kwacha per liter. Botswana is at $1.12, almost close to Zambia, which is at about $1.18. Botswana, which is equivalent to 31 kwacha per liter. Namibia is at $1.12, which is as well at 31 kwacha, equivalent to 31 kwacha per liter. Zambia is at $1.25, which is equivalent to 34 kwacha. Now, those costs. Have these countries revised? Yes, they have. Some of them because they don't do a monthly, or they did it once and for all, having projected the price of fuel and at what rate it was going. When you go further, you go to Europe, you're going to find similar situations, 1.32 as an average. Okay, cost of fuel. Now, tied to this, because there are so many things that raise the prices of commodities, and fuel is one of them. You're going to discover that tied to this is the poor performance of currencies. Last week, I was attending a conference among other countries, Ghana, Zimbabwe. We were with colleagues in Namibia, Impla, ZANU-PF, Zimbabwe. We had friends from Cuba, among others. I was attending in Mpumalanga. Dollar initially was trading at $1 to 12 point something. It swung suddenly 18.9, and they are questioning in such a period, where is it going? The China that I was talking about, yuan was initially trading at 3.8 yuan versus $1. 3.8. I was leaving China. If you check online, yuan trading at 7.35 against $1. It is a crisis in the world, and the IMF had to do justice together. The West, what did they do? They had to release money last year to the Africa Development Bank, warning that the prices of foodstuff worldwide is likely to go up. So they were financing over 23,000 farms across Africa using the Africa Development Bank. It is not peculiar to the country when it comes to fuel. Unfortunately, we are not producing fuel. Even if we produced, I'll give you an example of Angola, our neighbor here. The challenge that we have right now, which citizens have not realized, is that even South Africa has to shut down refinery companies that they had. Angola did the same. Now, the world is realizing that every time there is a problem, especially in the Middle East, prices of commodities, the whole world are affected. Over 5 years ago, USA had to redeem the situation by releasing, when there was war in the Gulf region, by releasing huge quantities of oil which they had to the world in their reserves in order to beat what was happening. But not anymore. War has taken long. And then the question that we have is, should the whole world have prices of fuel go up like this for as long as the war lasts? It's a question that no country is answering today. Right now in Africa, it's a question that no country is answering. It's a double tragedy, to say the least. Now, then what we need to do in the interim, government did announce the control measure that was put in place many years ago under ERB. As money is getting depleted, just like any other jurisdiction, adjustments have to be made and people have to tighten their belts. Nobody is saying fuel is not expensive. All of us agree fuel is expensive. There is no argument about it. Okay? Now, fuel is expensive. What do we do about it? This is the shock that the African Union got. This is the reason you saw the African Union they had to send representatives to go and meet President Zelensky and President Putin, because the shock had been felt by Africa. The AU sat and said, no, we're being messed up. They had to appoint 7 presidents. Museveni, South African President Ramaphosa, your President HH here, among other presidents, and they went to meet President Zelensky and say, gentlemen, can't you just sit down and talk? What you are doing is messing the whole world up. We are in a mess. Trading facilities, forex, all these have been affected. You saw the video that was circulating showing high inflation rate. A woman was buying vegetables in New York, complaining that things have become so expensive. And that is the effect. Now, the unfortunate situation we have found ourselves in, Zach, is that we have been hit amid a crisis. What is the crisis? The biggest crisis that we have had is debt in Congole. In Congole, made citizens and suffer. Nkongole made government at one point fail to recruit and imposed employment freeze. Nkongole made government stop paying council workers. Nkongole made government stop recruiting in the teaching fraternity and said we shall just be making replacements. Nkongole in this country made government, through Dr. Wariangando, announced to the country that moving forward, because of the debt, and at that time, before the debt servicing was suspended, he said 50%, gentlemen, countrymen, of what we are collecting as revenue is going to debt servicing. 40% to salaries. Government is running on 10%. It is not sustainable. We are making hard decisions. What were the hard decisions? Number one, all the projects across the country that have not exceeded 80% must stop to be financed. Secondly, wage freeze. No more salary increase. Thirdly, no more employment. We shall just be making replacements. Then what did we see? We saw things shaking. We had government reach an extent of now even failing to pay civil servants. They had to borrow money from NAPSA to pay salaries. Now, unfortunately, the crisis of Ukraine came in immediately when there was change of government. You saw Russia, Ukraine going for war. Initially, effects could not be felt immediately. But these are the conversations some of us have had. And then the narrative was that instability anywhere, says your president, is instability everywhere. They are appealing, as he was addressing the European Parliament, to intervene in Ukraine. That instability anywhere in the world is instability everywhere. The whole world is taking money there, especially developed countries. Under NATO, almost the entire Europe. How much have they been financing there? Creating a crisis of even the liquidity called dollar, thereby creating a scarcity of a dollar. Now, here is another problem that we have been confronted with.
Right.
And then I'll start providing the solutions. What are the solutions? Where are we going? So that people can have hope. While those things were happening, government comes in and realizes there's this debt mountain which made government fail to recruit. There's this debt mountain which made even investors stop investing in Zambia. Shops at malls started closing and people being retrenched. At East Park Mall, shops started closing, parking. The environment was becoming hostile for business. Government says, can we come up with a framework as we promised citizens? The promise was that we shall restructure the debt. Government undertook this decision and went head on with international institutions, including members that are involved. The president was basically begging developed countries that we owe because the previous government borrowed everywhere. In Europe, private sector, internally. You saw also in this Mamba Collieries, how much we are owing? About $500 million. Kwacha, which this government now, with the scarcity of resources that they had, needed to start paying so that we could get electricity from Mamba Collieries. They paid $300 and then they promised to finish at the close of last year. Now, while this conversation was going on with your president, you are finding every summit that is called side meetings, talking to President Macron, goes to talk to Europe, please help us. If you don't help us, there is no hope for Zambia. If you don't help us, we won't recruit workers. The levels of unemployment in the country are very high. Help us. He goes to China. Meanwhile, those with opposing views were busy talking about China. And of course, creating propaganda. He engages his counterpart, Xi Jinping, before he could go there on the phone. My brother, help us. We owe you a lot of money, over $6.5 billion. May you help us. The only way right now for the country is debt restructuring. If you don't do that, we shall go on the trajectory of our predecessors who said no more employment. Paying workers will be a problem. Paying council workers will be a problem. Paying retirees will be a problem. Partial withdrawal will be a problem. Even investing in the country to grow the economy will be a problem. Meaning the economy will not grow. They were listening to him. what is the guarantee that if we restructure the debt, we give you new terms, your country will manage? They say, wait a minute, there are conditions that we need to satisfy. What are the conditions? Fiscal discipline, sealing the hose for revenue collection, fight against corruption, very fundamental, because it also disadvantages countries that withdrawn like UK in financing this country, social cash transfer. They even requested for their money back, you remember? We needed to change the way Zambia was perceived, because the corruption perceptions index then was very high for this country. All of us understand where we're coming from. Now, what did we do? Government succeeded in the first stage of debt structuring. Staff level agreement was reached, meaning now the president, on behalf of the people of Zambia, was able to engage the members in the among the commercial creditors, like in institutions, IMF, Eurobond, EU. He was able to engage individual influential members, especially those that put in a lot in a particular basket, persuading them in this club. They are members of the Paris Club. China is not a member of the Paris Club. USA, France, among others, members of the Paris Club. He engages them, he persuades them. They accepted. This deal was sealed and he signed. I'm sure you saw in Morocco. Finally, signed, put a pen on paper. Now he has moved to another stage of the private creditors. Private creditors, private individuals and companies, they also have their own terms. That is what your president is grappling with. A month ago, he addressed the nation on the status of the debt and told you that once this particular stage in which we are succeeds, instead of us paying 7.5 billion US dollars, are you following that?
Yes.
Instead of us paying 7.5 billion US dollars in 10 years, we shall pay 750 million US dollars. Instead of paying 7.5 billion, 7.5 billion is equivalent to over 182 billion kwacha. And this money must be paid in 10 years. So he has negotiated to push that instead of us paying 7.5 billion US dollars, allow us to pay 750 million dollars. This 750 million dollars is somewhere maybe around 18 billion. And then he's saying, if you give us this, we'll divide it by 10 years. Then we know how much you're going to be paying. Now, you recall that ZRA this year celebrated a fruitful revenue collection target of 100 billion kwacha. Now, if you look at the money that they're asking for, it's way, way, way above. And then when you look at the way we finance the national budget is around 177 billion, close to what we need to pay back. Where do you get the money from as a country? Then the country has collapsed. Now, the country has been running on a thread, on a rope. Your budget is about 177 billion kwacha. You need to pay back over 182, meaning in each year you collect, last year you collected 100 billion kwacha. You have to part of this money to pay towards the 180, over 100 billion. So your president is saying, once we persuade our colleagues, and we are now almost there, 90%, if they can allow us to pay 750, then all the money that ZDA will be collecting, we can now increase CDF, so that under CDF, my mother gets some empowerment in terms of a grant. My sister who has no capacity to pay for school can get some scholarship under CDF. Then my brother who has never been to school and has gone up to grade 9 can do carpentry and have a survival skill. My brother there in Mansa who has never been to school and they are interested in business can as well do fish farming. We give them some empowerment. Because if we don't reduce this to 750 million, then we'll not be able to finance those people. We should also as well forget about 36 million CDF. Because running the country is about improving the livelihood of the people. That if you found 120,000 teachers on the street with papers, qualifications, applied in 2022, then you employ over 30,400 of them. This year, last year, the one who applied were 65,000, meaning we are going somewhere as a country. From 120,000 applicants to 65,000 applicants, even amid more graduates that are being thrown as at last year, the number came back to 65,000. To demonstrate that, we are now pressing the number of unemployed youths that have the qualifications on the street down. Where is the money coming from? Through this initiative of achieving the debt restructuring. Because instead of us beginning to service the debt, you negotiate that the debt servicing is suspended for a certain period. So that during this period, we make it by getting many youths into the employment sector. In addition to that, we can now increase CEEC. In 2021, the allocation was 41 million by the previous government. And they only managed to give out about 10 million kwacha. As we speak, as at last year, you're talking about almost 700 million. Meaning the number of beneficiaries went up. The second one was 365 million. That was the first one in the first budget, 2022. From 41 million. Where did that money from? The successful agreements and negotiations your government is having to suspend debt servicing. Now, and also to change the terms in terms of percentage. If you were supposed to pay back with 30%, your president negotiates that the country pays back with 0.6%. If the debt was already due and you defaulted, your president negotiates that let it start 3 years from now, then the other one let it mature or come to an end in 2030. So that we can stagger it. In other words, if I owe you 100 kwacha, I'm supposed to pay tomorrow, then I fail to pay tomorrow. Then I tell you that instead of me paying back tomorrow since I failed, I'm requesting that I pay next year. And then every day or every week, I'll be giving you 5 kwacha. That's what the government is doing now. So that MPH to wakula pangeshi, today we finance free education. Ama school to provide for free. Naba sambirira bonse bale yakuma skulu aba pusha maskulu aba kuma skulu ya kalambanga ba university. They can now go and get their jobs. These are the recruitments you are seeing. They are not miracles.
But let's talk
now,
about.
Let me get to I'm almost getting to the area where we need to understand, because I know that what people are itching to hear is that some of them will brush these things off and say, we are aware of all those things. Right. What we want is, what are you going to do?
Now that we are where we are.
It is not right for us not to give the background so that you know what is being done in order to get to where we are.
I agree with
because if we don't do that, they will not know how government is managing to recruit over 7,000. When their colleagues said no more employment, they will not know what government has done to increase CDF from 1.6 million kwacha to 30.6 million. When you have all this debt mountain, they will not know. But it's important that this information is given to the people so they understand that, so they are even doing these things. Then they need time to deal with the remaining things. So now let me go further. That amid these particular negotiations that are going on, government embarked on what they call domestic debt dismantling strategy 2022 to 2026. Inkongole shalifulisha mu Zambia na mwena before you get kufyalo fimbi. So bashile panga strategy domestic debt dismantling strategy 2022 to 2026 with a proper framework of on a quarterly basis how they can dismantle what government owes the suppliers, because they realize that this is a problem. So many companies owed when they took over, and they started now dismantling that we must have a strategy to dismantle what we owe. Then further, they enacted the Debt Management Act number 15 of 2022 to come up with a proper framework on how to manage the debt, the external debt and also the domestic debt. Because that is what is choking on a number of issues. So now, once that was done, now we can see government clearing retirees from 2017 to debt, civil servants. We could see now government clearly saving money out of the revenue collected, being able to finance CDF 30 point, and being able to pay all the constituencies across the country. It's not magic. They are actually making certain adjustments. Then the next thing they did, we saw government now moving towards getting what they promised in the health sector. Over 11,200 workers recruited. They move further to recruit in the Ministry of Defense, ZNS, Zambia Army, Zambia Air Force recruited. Immigration, they started immediately. Then they went local government. They picked workers in the local government. They started also clearing. They released 1.6 billion to clear 258,000 farmers across the country. Owed money. Dismantling strategy. Domestic debt dismantling strategy. They repaid all the farmers that were owed, clearing the record. That is what we call housekeeping. Then they moved towards now looking at the elephant in the room, the mines. Understanding, Zach, that our traditional export has always been copper. And the biggest mine in Zambia currently is Kalumbila. The second biggest mine in Zambia is KCM. And what is the status of KCM? Liquidated. Followed by which mine you saw there is Mopan. What is the status? Retrenching over 4,000 workers and going down below 40% production. What is the effects? You are not going to sell more copper so that you can bring those notes into the country, as you have always been. How were the effects felt when liquidation is done? Everyone who is doing business starts sweeping the little dollar that we had in the country until we reach the stage where there was serious scarcity of dollars on the market. What happens when there's a serious scarcity on the market? Then your currency will lose value lamentably. How do you fix it? That's why you are seeing your president jumping to sign agreements, found an equity partner to put in Mopani $1.1 billion US. And as we are speaking, you and me here, they have started paying suppliers that supply various goods under the Patriot Front. Mopani has started. KCM as well has started. Now, where is that taking us to? Where it is taking us is to a stage where those mines must come back so that we take back the production of copper to where it used to be. Then we can export more copper to attract forex into the economy. It is a country in the ICU being fixed. Not only in the ICU. What are these professionals who fix bones? What are they called? When you have a broken leg. It is also in that area where broken limbs must be fixed. I'm just from telling you. Again, what do? They check council workers are in arrears. Some 7 months, Zach. Others 15 months salary arrears. What do? Why are they negotiating on the other side? Because the country was completely in a standstill. They start now paying council workers. As if nothing was going on. They paid all the council workers their arrears and brought their salary record up to date. Then they move and say, gentlemen, minimum will never go down. We promised people that it must come as low as 50. To do that is impossible if fertilizer is too expensive. Right now, we are debt choked. In Congolese Africa. As a government, we cannot easily run a company manufacturing plant because millions are required to do that. Let us find our brothers who are already producing very little in Zambia. Then we encourage them by finding them an equity partner. He goes into the New York, he starts negotiating with businessmen in the USA. Using Zambia Development Agency, gets some local brothers who are running manufacturing companies, put them on board, negotiate for them in USA. As Zambia to the US Africa Leadership Summit, he clinches a deal for them. $138 million fertilizer manufacturing plant. And you know that to satisfy the demand on the market with this influx of farmers is a process. And it is envisaged that the time it is going to be in full capacity, 300,000 metric tons of urea will be available. Then 700,000 metric tons of decompound will be available. But understanding that that is a process, setting up a plant and finishing everything, the farmers cannot wait. We have continued on the path that was being undertaken by the previous government of importing fertilizer. And then the cost of fertilizer in Zambia is primarily determined by the landing cost. And not only that, because the demand is acute. Even when the local ones produce, to get material and everything together, the price has exacerbated. How do we then push meal down? We amid all this debt and all these confusions. Then he sits down with his cabinet, Mutarina Luango, Elias Mubanga, Jackie Mwimbu, Kabuswe, Mutoro Piri, among others. Gentlemen, we need to make strong decisions here. Very hard decisions. Signs an agreement with DRC to export mealie meal in order to take advantage of the market there and eventually discourage smuggling, which depletes the local product. After signing that agreement, they even push in an advance, should have been $15 million. What does he do? He pays to ZNS, ensures that they have enough equipment. They released 1 million in the 2022 national budget, 1 million kwacha, to conduct an audit of farm blocks across the country. What do we mean by that? To check what equipments are obsolete, what equipments are workable, where are their center pivots, how do they need, what do they need? Do they need to be placed completely, or we need to simply to repair them? What is the cost of repairing? How much will it take also to get the workers on board in terms of all these feasibility studies done? And then he says we are going for it. After receiving that money, we are going to use ZNS. We get 10 million plants, commercial plants. When we produce, we can also compete by providing the local market. And then, most importantly, let us attend to the foreign market, because it's the one that is also contributing to the disaster at home. If you check, citizens still complain in Eastern Province that we see trucks pass into Malawi. They will tell you, no, we saw trucks. Trucks are being impounded. Unfortunately, even if trucks owned by local millers, then government says we cannot continue arresting citizens over business. We cannot continue arresting poor businessmen in Chirawombwe over business. Business should be a means of survival. We must find a solution. And what's the solution? We must put in place a system by ensuring that we choke the market of DRC, we choke the market of Malawi, we choke the market of Tanzania, we choke the market of Kenya. That can only be done by us as government, not relying on the private sector, because we have been surviving at the mercy of the private sector. Private farmers, then FRA goes to buy and they're busy appealing to them not to sell to briefcase businessmen. But then government should be a player, because in every environment, in every country where a government wants to protect its citizens, they become the major player. So what do? Government is now part of the business of farming. And next month, we are already in this month now, February, winter maize is ready under ZNS. They are harvesting now. The natural harvest is not yet. I'm telling you that they are now harvesting already. Okay? They are a step ahead. Center pivots, I'm sure some of you have seen them, have been erected in various farm blocks. And they will be planting winter maize. The moment this harvest is done, they are planting again. What is the goal? The goal is that the scarcity that has been created in some parts of the country due to smuggling should be resolved. The next thing is that because using ZNS cuts down on the cost of producing mealie meal, the price will go down. Does that kill the millers? For your record, in case you didn't know, Zach, it is the cry of millers not to sell meal in Zambia for a very long time. They are saying they have good market abroad. Government has been saying, no, we will not allow you to do that. Now, but how long are you going to do that? For those people that think that government is killing local millers because of ZNS, they actually want the foreign market themselves, because they know that a bag, 25 kg bag of meal will cost more than 700 kwacha, and they'll make more money in DRC. So what does government do? He's saying, we are not your enemies. We are not trying to kill you. Come on board, let's work together. That is where you have seen ZNS signing contracts with local millers, because the focus of government is also to boost our local investors, not to kill them. They are signing contracts with the ZNS, and then ZNS is giving them branded bags, ego milling. And then they are producing on behalf of ZNS, making money as well. ZNS has the market. In addition to that, government realizes that the local market has always been feeding Zambians, and it is not enough to feed Zambians and foreigners. Government resolved and elected to import maize from South Africa. You know that over 85% of what South Africa produces is GMO. They have their own market. Okay? So then they can attend to the agreement. DRC is very much aware, and they are ready to receive the maize, the mealie meal from that side. ZNS will crash it, and it will find its way. There are a lot of fears that have come on board. I wanted to talk to so many of these things, instead of us concentrating on talking about the opposition.
Yes, but let's also now discuss the the effects of, because remember my first question was around fuel, the effects of, the immediate effect for that matter of increased fuel on the cost of living. Because remember that the cost of living has been a thorny issue, and it's here, and this fuel increments fuels it all.
Correct. I'll be very frank with you. What people don't want is to compare, but our competitor. So let me just deal with the question as that has come. Okay. It is a well-known fact that when the price of fuel goes up, it leads to direct effects, trickle-down effect on the prices of commodities. That's very true.
Right.
And then to be put in place. Measures that have been put in place to attend to staple food are already underway. Ensure that the price of the bag of mealie meal and ZNS is not affected. So government wants to take responsibility. They envisaged where we are today. That is why in good time, they have to come up with a very strong decision of bringing ZNS on board. Who is exporting ZNS mealie meal? Your own brothers and sisters in the country. ZNS will take enough, they will export, then it create a crisis. And you see, you cannot just blame the citizens. Even some officers who have been depending on these illegal exports. This is where patriotism comes in. Do you want to save your country or yourself alone? This is what should make a difference. I know people want to survive on business. The trucks being impounded where big wigs are being involved in the exports. You heard Cornelius Mwetwa, chief government spokesperson, talking about some big wigs. When they are arrested, they say it's persecution. I think we need to change the way we do things in the country. Now, the effects are clear. Measures have already been put in place. I've already mentioned on mealie meal. Citizens should not be scared. ZNS is taking it up to ensure that the shock is reduced. Most importantly, the yield we anticipate from ZNS, already I'm telling you that they are already harvesting now, in addition to what they planted already in other farm blocks, in addition to what citizens have planted, that many of you have known that they've planted too much across the country. We are expected to have a situation where there are very few people that are buying. Many people are using their own product. Then at the same time, when you produce more, supply too much of it on the market, the seller there will have no business and they'll start reducing the price of the meal. That is what happens. Is there profit in the mealie meal? Yes, there is. How do I justify when the maize flour price is 280? Let me explain. You recall that when the maize flour price was 95 kwacha, mealie meal went to above 200. Was it because of the maize flour price? When the maize flour price was 120, the cost of mealie meal went to 285. Was it because of maize flour price? I don't think so. There were many other factors. So, among other factors, you attend to some which are more paramount. What are those factors? Fertilizer. I know that therein lies the cost of transportation. Who is going to be dealing with that one? ZNS. Who is going to be dealing with that one? FRA. How do they do it themselves? They don't do it the way millers do. If a milling company is based in Osaka, a miller will go and buy maize in Kaoma and transport it all the way. How does FRA do it? FRA will buy in Kaoma and it will stay in Western Province. I'm sure you're following that. FRA will buy it in Kasama. They will not transport it to Lusaka. It will stay in Kasama. That's the difference. There is a management mechanism. There is a management issue coming in. So anxiety should not come up. And there should only be anxiety that you call it a crisis if this is peculiar to your country alone. But then you have people that are thinking. That's why you are able to have this you call crisis. On the other side, they are announcing huge numbers of youth to be recruited. Because recruiting people is an economic issue. Instead of 4,500, you recruit 7,000, over 7,000. It means over 7,000 families have an income that they've never had in the past 5-7 years. And now they can even buy a bag of mini, those that want to buy.
Families
means-
can have an income, but
It means-
it's fast spent because the cost of living is so high.
It is not disputed. And this is what we are explaining. And in addressing the cost of living, I'm from talking about measures being undertaken by government. It's a certain measure whose fruits will begin to just this year. Because the implementation started last year for ZNS. It started with the opposition saying, you want to kill millers. How do you do such a thing? You look at countries like China. Someone was saying, no, that's a socialist country. China is not even using socialism from the book. They are calling it communism with Chinese characteristics. It's a combination of even capitalism in it. That's why they have come up with what they are calling an opening up policy with a shared future. They have now they have opened up now to foreign direct investment. They had to do a pilot, Shenzhen and Shanghai. Now, when they realized that these two provinces produced more than any other province among the 23 provinces, then they said, we are going for FDI, foreign direct investment. In Shenzhen, in Shanghai, you find so many American companies and international companies there. Volkswagen there, Mercedes-Benz, everything there. And they're producing more. Who are the majority? Youths there. How did they start? Cooperatives. Then I understood. I said, oh, now I understand what we are doing in Zambia. Cooperatives. And how did the economic reform start? It started with a big contract of 1949. What was the big contract? Making citizens engage in farmers. Because naturally, all human beings in the world are farmers. I wanted you to hear this.
I do get.
Naturally, where we are coming from in Africa, where we are coming from in the background, all African societies are farmers. That is how we have survived over the years.
And I'm glad that you're making these comparisons with China to our case. But look, in a democracy, what Chinese government has probably embarked on and implemented may not be the case in a democracy. For example, I know because of these things that you're talking about are long term. Okay, we'll only begin to see them 2 to 3 years after 2026, and then you have election to deal with in 2026 in less than 2 years, for example. And most of what you have implemented are so much long-term plans. I mean, the fruits of what this government is doing will probably be seen 3 years later, but 3-4 years later. But you have an election to deal with, and you have pressure because now a group of opposition parties which gathered yesterday, which saw obviously the former head of state, His Excellency Edgar Chagwa, also have a word and called for it to call for early elections because he has failed.
Yeah, I refrained deliberately.
Was that a deliberate? I mean, probably I'm beginning to think the opposition strategically had to choose yesterday, knowing that fuel prices were going to be raised. And when an opposition leader like himself, the former head of state, calls for the incumbent to call for an early election because he has failed, it is justified by the fact that a few hours later,
fuel was going up. Now, I refrained deliberately from starting the conversation.
But it's politics.
Now, I'm coming. I'll come. I deliberately refrained myself from going straight to deal with ECL.
Right.
Because I was going to lose the most important things that I've brought out. Okay? And I'll get to politicking now that you've asked.
Right.
You've raised quite a number of things. You're saying what China is doing may not happen in a democracy. You see, people don't understand China. I'm an alumni at Peking University. There is democracies in China. The president is elected. It depends on where you stand. That's the answer the professors will give you there. It depends on where. Because I was asking them that now, those ideologies that you have are capitalist ideologies. They said, wow, we have an opening up policy. It's a concoction. That's why we are calling it socialism with Chinese characteristics. We have our homemade theory. They are saying we have moved away from the rhetoric of debating about socialism. And then they said, Mark, what the developed countries did not tell you is that they had to do what China has done before they opened up. That's their argument. How did this professor Zhang argue, he said their companies were nationalized initially before they opened up. And this is what they don't want to tell you. And today you think we are bad people. We are not. Now we are opening up for direct investment based on where we are. And we had to do it systematically. That's the answer I'm saying. We had to first of all test it in Shanghai and Shenzhen. That's why when the president went to China, he went exactly to see what happened in Shenzhen, to make China the second biggest economy in the world, using Shenzhen and Shanghai. Now, when you say this is different from a democracy, go online.
I mean, I'm looking at it from time frames.
You've asked the question.
I'm looking at it from time frames. Like
Yeah.
you can't do that in 5 years.
No, I'm coming.
Where you have to
I'm
face
coming.
an election.
I'm coming. UPND,
Not even 10 years is
yes.
enough. Yeah.
UPND is not preoccupied with 2026 elections. It's preoccupied with mending the country, putting it in the right direction, and start growing the economy. By, first of all, remove it from the ICU, remove it from the debt pressure. Now, you are saying most of these things that they've done are long term and time is catching up. Let me demonstrate to you the fact that there are things that can be done immediately and things that can be done in a graduating manner. What are those things that the government has done immediately? Number one, we have cleared salary arrears. Do they need to wait for 2026? No. Go to the council workers. They will tell you that we are now getting paid every month.
I know that.
Go to the farmers and ask them if there are some who are queuing there waiting for their money. They will tell you we are paid on time. And the 258,000 of us were cleared. They will tell you. Go to Tazama workers who are owed money there. They will tell you we were given. Go to Indeni. They will tell you Indeni has been reopened and over 1,500 workers are back for work. They will tell you. Go to Mopani today. They are paying suppliers UPF left. Go to Kalumbila. They will tell you now we can invest because we can see where the country is going. And we can see that there is no policy inconsistency. We can now invest over $1.3 billion. And now nickel is going to be the biggest mine in Africa. Just Rumwana has announced they are actually recruiting even 1,000 workers. It's more than 1,000 workers. They have started. The next thing, UPND comes in, does prudently run the meager resources that they had. They made sure the council, local authorities are the ones collecting levies. And the councils announced how much they started, how much they collected in Lusaka alone in a week. They announced. What have we done now? Immediately, the government announced 30,000 job creation in government. Then the opposition said, no, it's a non-starter. It's Fred who went on Hot FM and he said he's lying, he's waiting for debt restructuring. He thought it's easy to run the country. Before this debt restructuring deal was signed, 30,000 were recruited. And as we speak, they are all on the payroll. In addition to that, there were some which PF announced 1,200 to be recruited. They failed to recruit all of them. Those they recruited, they did not put them on the payroll. They had to include them in this and put them on the payroll as well. Government moves, goes to Ministry of Health. Immediately, I'm not talking about 2026. Immediately, over 11,200 workers in the health sector. Nurses, doctors, physiotherapists. As we talk today, my breadwinners. 30,000 plus 11,000 is giving you over 41,000. Plus 7,000. Over 7,000 is giving you 48,000. Plus 3,000 is giving you 51,000. Now, this is just health and education. Let's go to the 5,000 in defense and others. You are coming to close to 60,000. Let's go to immigration. You are coming to more than 60,000. Let's go to local government. You are hitting 70,000 in 2 years. It has never happened in the history of this country. UPND is not waiting for 2026. Where else do we go? Let's now go to retirees. It's like everything was in a standstill. They started clearing retirees. The question that people have asked is that, these guys, how come that using the same resources, they are able to do all these things? Their friends had the same resources, they were not able to do. What was wrong? What was lacking was leadership. They moved. They started dismantling retirees from 2017, paying. Early last year, 3,000 paid that ago. Then they moved. Then they said, we have a mandate. Then they moved. CDF, as we speak today, 30.6 million. In 2021, when the UPND took over, they found even in an election, PF could not pretend at least to pay 1.6. They failed to pay it, 1.6 million. UPND started by paying the 1.6 million, then it paid the equalization fund. Equalization fund is where, let me explain it. When the council prepares their expenditure, their budget, for paying workers and other operational costs, they have a deficit. For example, if their budget is 100,000, out of the levies that they collect, they only manage maybe to raise 60,000. That balance, 40,000, which they do not have, is what you call equalization fund when the government gives. Even that, UPND found it was not paid for 2021. UPND started by paying that one as well. They started paying salary arrears. What was happening then? They could unleash cadres on them to beat them up. Then the next thing, they went, we've talked about the farmers already. Now, these are things that are fundamental that have been done already. The next thing, what do? Then they go now to dismantle the domestic debt. That's the domestic debt dismantling strategy I referred to earlier. Then debt restructuring, which some people have been mocking, and it's moving and helping the country. What did we see? In 2022 alone, we managed to attract $3.8 billion worth of investment. The next thing, government putting up other infrastructure, such as through a co-owned program, which will be housed in the industrial park on the Copper Belt, and that is the electric car battery manufacturing plant. Okay. Next, what do we see now? Free education. Instantly, not waiting for free for 2026. Free education does not mean government just declares that it's for free. Government is paying. And you've heard NACES and other teachers association thanking government for paying grants, for paying all the schools across the country, grants to run. Then the next thing, government realized there are these school pupils who are writing exams. Government cuts a check every year, giving the Examination Council of Zambia to pay for all the children in the country who are writing exams, their examination fee. From the time government took over leadership, they have been paying examination fees for the pupils across the country. Which countries believe Zambia is doing what is supposed to be done and they are copying Kenya? The moment Ruto was sworn in, 30,000 teachers. Next thing, CDF. South Africa arrived there. They're doing the same. On load shedding, ESCOM of South Africa, an electric company, had to hire people from ZESCO from Zambia and put them on the flight to go there to South Africa to try to go and help the situation. In Zambia, you'll be insulting all your people and your brothers. Other countries are seeing an opportunity of people they can consult.
But this government has been called a failure.
No, but it depends on where you stand.
And
how can a person who has failed grade 7, 10 times tell you how to pass exams? How? This is what Edgar Lungu is doing. Aba nabo bale pipa, balanfia. Then babwera bere nishita mupipire, na mufirwa, kupipa. What the country is going on, what the friends are paying now in Mopani and KCM was left by him. What their friend, instead of concentrating on other things by subsidizing the economy, that money could have been used perhaps to subsidize the economy. They are busy paying in Congole to Mamba Collieries. How many citizens can be empowered in 500 million? How many? That's the money they are paying Mamba Collieries. How many citizens can be empowered in $700 million, which the government now is paying the oil marketing companies? How many people can be recruited from that money? How many citizens can change their lives in $32 billion? If you come to Lusaka, you see the flyover bridges. It is a grant from India. And they had to make sure their own companies from there undertook the project. How come, you haven't asked yourself, how come money was borrowed for projects? Then the minister came back and announced that they have not exceeded 80% stop, including expansion of Kafue hydropower station, 120 secondary schools across the country. Then the question is, if the bill of quantity was done by quantity surveyors, where did the money go? To reach a stage where you stopped constructing. Your friends had to come in to buy 4 turbines, big turbines, at lower hydropower station in Kafue. 1 turbine producing 150 megawatts. in total 600 megawatts to resolve the load shedding in the country. And also to pay 500 million kwacha to Mamba Corridors so that they could supply electricity to ZESCO. All that money that you are talking about could have even been used as a subsidy. But where in the world can you get all this mess they left to subsidize things? Where will you get the money from? Imagine, Zach, you owe me 10,000 kwacha. Then you tell me, Mark, I'm not able to pay 10,000 kwacha. Please na papata. Nimfiro kulipira mairo walandire. Ndefu anka lipire next year in 2025. Nebere, okay. How do you prove that you will pay? Nebere, narapanga ma adjustments, nalakisana grow economy, so that ama Zambia zingabachita produce ifinga, amatabayengi, ama companies na yaleta kufiyalo fimbi yasa Muzambia, yamuko la lipira ma taxes. Then tukashita collect tax yingi Muzambia. Ngoto collect tax yingi, impia shafula, then you'll be able to service the debt at that time. That's what your president is doing. Attracting foreign direct investment. When they come here, they recruit 3,000 workers. They become taxpayers. Then they are contributing more to ZRA. And when that has been done, government is now collecting more money. When they collect more money, at the time that the debt is due, they will have sufficient money to service the debt and run the economy and invest again. Now, this is what they are doing. Let me go to the next thing that you raised. Very important. I was talking about China. This is obviously and China doesn't want people to talk about China from the point of view of this is democracy. No, they are saying, look, we have come up with a homemade strategy. It's a combination and a concoction of ideologies China is using. Within there is communism with a Chinese characteristic. There is capitalism in it. Profit maximization. That is what they are doing here as investors. They are not a charitable organization. Because socialism deals with profit sharing. The NFC, for your record, for those people that do not know. Even me, I did not know until I got to China. Non-fairness. It is a government, it's a state enterprise in China. Did you know that? That NFC you are seeing. The companies you are seeing, China, Jiangxi, and so on, they are state enterprises there. All what China is doing is what we are trying to do here. In some cases, they are partnering with citizens. For example, I visited a province called Hebei province, which they are using to decongest Beijing. I visited a farm block which produces vegetables and fruits. Government has 50% and the villagers are 50%. They are even exporting to other Asian countries and Europe. I said, Zambians don't understand this. This is what my country is trying to do, where they are coming in to partner with citizens on certain things. The way ZN is doing, trying to partner with Zambian millers. Then I realized, oh, no wonder China is a threat. The uniqueness of China, my brother, is that it is the only country emerging the way it is economically without colonizing another country and without invading another country to get minerals. It has a unique test, which even USA is borrowing. You are seeing them signing different agreements with the West. Meanwhile, you are busy fighting and calling them names. This is for the West. This one is for China. What was Xi Jinping doing in the USA? What agreements did they sign with his friends? To better their bilateral relations, economic relations, the Chinese. I also attended the summit where there are scientists from USA universities were in attendance there to deal with what they call artificial intelligence. How they are working together, they are coordinating. You will be busy jumping here. No, this is for China. This is from you. Do you know why they have an embassy in USA? Do you know why USA has an embassy in China? What are they doing there? They are not naive. So I want to say this, that UPND is not working under pressure from the opposition. You are dealing with grade 7s that have failed 10 times. They are not bringing anything on the table. They are not providing alternative leadership right now. Number one, there was a question on Edgar Lungu on debt restructuring. He can't answer it because he had to switch finance ministers. They failed to even start the process. They went and hired a foreigner who came and failed lamentably. What did we do? Financiers withdrawing from Zambia, UK aid, withdrawing social cash transfer that because money had gone missing in the account. 1 week later, they came around and said, no, we have found the money there's enough account. How were they paying if they didn't know the account where the money was coming from? Then the international community saw over 3,000 ghost workers They were asking at how you saw it even in the Auditor General's report. They're saying, how do you make a mistake and you pay 3,000 people that don't exist? Who pays and who receives? Because when someone is receiving, they must be withdrawing. So instead of recruiting youths who were unemployed, they were paying 3,000 people that don't exist. Colossal sums of money. Money developing legs at the Ministry of Education, leading to suspension of some staff there. So much money, I'm sure you recall. And the world was watching and said, what is this? Wait a minute. Then the next thing you saw, in the process of dealing with issues of the fight against corruption, ECO attempted to unleash ACC on his colleague, Chito Taylor. But what we saw was a cleansing ceremony. He tried to sack Dr. Chitalo Chilufya, not because they were clear-cut mistakes, but because Chitalo Chilufya became a threat and he has presidential ambitions. So, HH is not ECL, and ECL will never be HH. These things I'm talking about, he failed. You can tick them. To create jobs, even 7,000, 11,000, he failed. CDF to pay, he failed. I'm following. To run the mines, liquidated them, he failed. Mopani collapsed, retrenching over 7,000, 4,000 workers. KCM retrenching over 7,000 workers. Now, when they were retrenching those workers on the copper belt, did they know that they were sending families into joblessness? When they were retrenching workers in Mopani over 4,000, did they realize that they were sending families into poverty? When they closed in Ndeni and sent home over 1,500 workers, didn't they realize that they were making people jobless? How can they go back to the same people and say, we can do things better? These people have failed. After over 1,500 people have gotten back their jobs, after this government has managed to get an equity partner, those suppliers that were pleading every day are being paid now quietly. Council workers whom they were threatening to beat for asking for the money that belongs to them for 7 months to 15 months have been cleared their dues. How did they expect them to survive? They allowed cadres to be the ones collecting levies and made the local government bankrupt. How did they wish to run the country? Social cash transfer was stolen. How did they wish to help citizens? They were exporting mukula illegally. How did they expect to grow the economy? They were unable to account on how. Just today, ask him to make a breakdown on how they spent the $32 billion US. You'll be shocked. We are aware of structures, some matters are in court, and some universities where money was released, but there's nothing there. We don't want to talk about certain things because
let me invite the callers at this point on 0955-221515 if you wish to call us. That's the number you're calling us on. But for your SMSs and WhatsApp messages, please send them to 0761-912493. The numbers again for your SMSs and WhatsApp messages, 0761-912493. For your phone calls, 0955-221515. Strictly for your phone calls as well. So let's take some calls. Good morning. Welcome to the burning issue. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Yes, Mr. Zach, good morning.
Good morning to you. Thank you. Your name, sir, and where you're calling us from.
Simple Kaneo, calling you in Osaka.
Simple Kaneo, please go ahead.
Mr. Max Moore, good morning.
Morning, Simple Kaneo.
Indeed. Well explained, Max Moore. You know, Mr. Zach, more especially Mr. Edgar Lungu and some opposition leaders, they think each and every Zambian, they are very dull, such that they can buy into their propaganda. Me, I have challenged most of the opposition leaders to say, yes, as a country, we are in a crisis. But let one of the opposition leaders tell me the alternative of these challenges which you are going through and how he's going to address these issues. Then I am ready to follow that opposition leader. And as for me, that person, I can no longer see him. The former president yesterday was asked a straightforward question to say that you are the one who left us in this problem. What is the alternative which you are giving? He started sharing. Jonas said that go and ask the man who is at the State House. Is it what he's offering to this country? And those journalists, I think, they left a lot of questions to ask this man. I remember when they were borrowing all these monies, which they went to borrow on the streets of China, which are very difficult to negotiate so that these people they can reach an agreement. They said we have got a sinking fund where we are putting aside the money which you are going to pay. Ask me a question, where did you take all those monies if you said you have got a sinking fund? The man can't answer such questions. So as for me, like Mr. Maximo, I'm very much interested in what you have explained and like concentrating much on the people who doesn't have got anything to offer to this country because they're the one who destroyed it. They can't give you any alternative. The only answer they'll give you so that this money has failed, let him go. If he has failed, what are you offering? They will never tell you that. So Mr. Maximo, let's just continue explaining. Look, people, my date which are not here, Mukongole. Pierre will look now, and as he's saying, we shouldn't even talk about the past. Them when they were taking over leadership, Pierre was how much was at 4 kwacha. They left it how much? They left it at 17 kwacha. And when they were leaving, ask them question: how much was fuel costing a barrel, and how much is it costing now a barrel fuel? If it's total, it has increased. And how do they expect that that international market something has increased? Then that local market they want it to be reduced. So as for me, as long as there's no one who is giving alternatives, they're just condemning and say this man let him go. Despite all these challenges they're going through, he's trying. Then they just let him go. We are not going to buy into that because we are not all down that we can buy into propaganda. We want someone who will answer questions these Zambian people are going through, and they're just saying this man is going. We will not buy into that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. We'll take some more calls. I also have your messages. Please send them on 0761 912493. Strictly for your messages. WhatsApp or indeed SMS, and 0955-221515 is the number you're calling us on for your voice note. Now I've got Generations Lead Zambia. Generation Lead Zambia on Facebook says, by UPND, the reason why you were massively voted for is because you acknowledged that the mess of the PF created, you were going to clean the mess. Hence the slogan, Bali will fix it. What has gone wrong with the fixing? This party had all the solutions for all the problems. I think he meant to say to all the problems. It pointed out in PF when in opposition and has become blank while in the ruling position. Cost of living is high. Cost of doing business is high. Taxation of citizens is high. Fuel is high. Akabunga nakadula. Forex is high. Unemployment rate is high. Poverty levels yena tekulanda. All old people have failed this country, and it's now time for the young people of this country to take over leadership and drive the economy of this nation to greater abundance. 2026, we are doing away with all pre-independence born and replace them with the post-independence born. So that is an organization, I believe it's Generation Lead Zambia that actually had that. Spectator Cassie Ligo, Spectator says, continue on this trajectory, you shall face the majority silent Zambians in the ballot in 2026, and you shall vanish like ripe tomatoes being consumed at the funeral house. We still have some more. This is Nkoma Mambwe, who said, you said you would fix these problems. And you said wars have been there and will always be there and must not be an excuse to rising prices. You forget too fast. Things are so bad and you have failed. All right. Let me ask you to probably respond to those three, but let me quickly maybe give you one more call. Quickly give you one more call. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Your name's and where are you calling us from?
My name is Bright Chimanya, calling you from Kabwe, Ngungu specifically.
Bright Chimanya, please go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much. Max Simuuwe, bro, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Very much okay today. Yes. You see, I like the way you articulate things, Mr. Maximo. I like it actually personally because those are facts and we cannot run away from those facts. Oh, what you have said, that is how it is. And for one to claim that me, I'm better than HH, to me, that is a blue line. Because HH and his government, they are doing things differently to make sure that the things that went wrong during PF regime are put correctly now or in a right position. Retirees were not being paid. Where did that money, how was that money used which was supposed to pay retirees? They were pocketing. You see the thing. Look at the social cash transfer disappearing and resurfacing at the same time. So all things were being misplaced and they are the reason why today we are in this deep troubles as a country. But as we are moving, the space we are moving with the UPND, we are moving at a right direction because even this dollar which is being raised up, it will be reduced as the forex begin to come in. Mama and Zuka have explained much more. Mama and Zuka, they were being closed in the PF, but this time they are in operation. All the dollars now will be coming into the country and it will help to maintain the raising of the dollar. So I think with the UPND, we are in a right trajectory. Only that people like politics in everything. They can't remove the glasses of politics and put the real glasses to see how UPND are doing things. So for me, Maki, kudos, work hard, they continue telling Zambian people about the truth, about what the government is doing. This is the right government we have ever had.
Thank you, Mr. Bright. Thank you very
so
much. Thank you. Thank you for that. Maybe respond.
Okay.
Still got quite a lot of messages coming through fast and furious. Just be brief. Yeah.
It's important that you respond to messages.
Right.
Because they are raising concerns. If you don't respond to them, we're just reading them. Obviously, that won't help us. Let me go to Nkoma. I'll combine the question for Nkoma with Spectator Legal.
Yeah.
And the Generation Lead.
That's right.
Yes. So let me start with the Spectator Legal, where I say you face the majority Zambians in 2026.
Right.
That's not the preoccupation of citizens. You actually wake up to a rude shock. You will discover that some of the things that you are raising, they are not directly hammering the youths. And the preoccupation of the youths who have papers on the street is that they need to get a job. Out of 10, if they discover that 6 of the friends are being recruited, for them something is going on. And be very careful when you get so preoccupied with 2026 because UPND is not doing replacements. They are getting thousands in the recruitment. Those mines that we are reopening, be on the lookout. You see, we have moved from that level of politicking. We are focusing on issues where you tag your reasoning to the ballot that come 2026. Whom are you targeting? Because when UPND came in leadership, they found between 5 to 6 million pupils across the country. The moment free education came in, now we are moving towards 10 million across the country. Be very careful as you speak because those who were in grade 10 and they will have graduated and qualified in 2026, they understand that they are products of free education. You must have a good message for them. You don't seem to understand what is going on. Be very careful that you're dealing with over 3 million people that will be beneficiaries. Also, be very careful that these universities whose meal allowances you scrapped off have been given back meal allowances. So when you want to play smart and hypocritical that you think about Zambians when you are scrapping up meal allowances, which they should have used to buy food, you should know that those are thinking. Can you imagine how they are looking at you? You scrap off meal allowances in 2 universities, then another government comes in. They extend the facility even to 7 other public universities. You think those students are so down? They can't see what's going on. They are seeing friends celebrating on social media getting recruited. You need to think twice if you are preoccupied with 2026. UPND's mandate is to run the country. And they are not worried about how close it is coming. They are more worried about making sure that we come out of the debt crisis and the country is in control. That is the simplest way of explaining. Mufola 2 pin in Congole, ni 10 pin. Is that normal? Every day come Zambia, you raise 100 billion kwacha per year. Then you are owing 32 billion US dollars. That's what you are in. The mess you created in Weber Spectator for 10 years cannot be resolved in 2 years. You are being hypocritical. There is no president who can do that across the world. You want all the mess to be resolved in 2 years. You are not being realistic. Vankoma, he said you fix it. Yes. So you can see that Indian is reopened and people are getting paid. You can see that over 70,000 youths have been recruited. When you said employment freeze, you said wage freeze. You can see that people are having salary increase. You can see that now the investment has gone up in a year, 3.8 billion. You can see that you failed to fix salaries for casual workers. They have been fixed. You can see that you failed to fix street vendors. It has been fixed. You cannot see that you failed to pay CDF, to use CDF to develop the country. It has been fixed and increased beyond what you ever imagined. Do you want to take people backward? Because whatever is being done today, to you it was impossible. You told citizens that they are lying. Where will they get the money from to provide free education? It is here. Do you know that the majority of pupils are in public schools? Private schools in the country are few. Do you know how many schools across the country are there that these schools are receiving grants? Do you know that when you failed to recruit health workers, you are doing replacements dubiously? People were paying at Ministry of Education. There was chaos there to even get a job, paying 10 pin, 15 pin. You saw youth celebrating on social media that for the first time have been recruited without bribing anybody. Even your own members, there were 5 by-elections in Northern Province. Your councillors have been recruited. They don't agree with you. So be very careful when you come on the platform and talk about those things. Only one politician congratulated HH over free education and recruitment. It's Shimbaka Mwiri. He knows, he was very sincere. He knows what is there in government. And it was far-fetched. He said, congratulations, HH. Others went and buried their heads in the sand. Up to now, even the debt restructuring where it has reached, they have no clue. Because this country under Edgar Lungu could have been worse. Why? Because he started insulting the people he owed money. IMF, they can go. Europe, they can go. Even China, which he wants to claim to be so close to today, refused to restructure the 6.5 billion US dollars. It has just been done now. This is what you don't know. Now, the next thing that I want to bring out for those of you now, I'm simply trying to explain to you that running the country is a graduating process. It's not an event, it's a process. And the process is not tied to 2026. If you think you are going to punish HH, he has made it in life. He was talking about a child that has never been to school. And to him, today, for your record, if I had a way, the moment he provided free education, I could have told him to retire. Because that is what surprised Europe. Standing ovation there. When I go to some countries, the question they ask me is, how have you managed free education? I was in China. There is no free education there. It only goes up to grade 9 in rural areas. And one professor, I remember last time I said here, I asked a question when we were discussing the Belt and Road Initiative in a class, on international trade and all those things, course. Then we were dealing with the Robito Corridor. Then he asked a question, why do you think all of a sudden there's so much interest and pulling over Zambia? Everybody was quiet. We had people from Kazakhstan, we had people from Russia, we had people from Egypt, South Africa, name them, Namibia, Angola, Malawi, everywhere. We were quiet. Then the professor says, because Zambia now is better managed. It's easy to invest in Zambia. That's what they're saying. Then he said, oh, so this Robito corridor, we have taken it lightly. It ran on the news in Zambia and we ended there. Little did we know that the initiative of the Lobito Corridor is similar to the Belt and Road Initiative. It is also similar to the BSA company strategy of many, many years ago of wanting to put up a railway line from Cape Town to Egypt. And I said, oh, okay, I understand now. And then they said, also, Zambia has good relations with DRC. So it is easy to also use Zambia to tap into DRC. And true to the fact, then I realized, oh, no, wait a minute. I have not thought about this. Zambia has the longest border among all the countries that we border with the DRC. Then I understood why your president is with his government are improving border posts, all of them getting into DRC. Then I said, oh, I understand. I understand when he meant his counterpart in Wapula, trying to do a new road, cutting across, going through into East Africa. Then I said, okay, I understand where we are going. Now, it is strange that foreigners were now explaining it to me. I was seated there. That's when I started thinking outside the box. I said, oh, okay. So these guys know what they are doing. Then I realized that when they said, when you want to develop the country, do your roads, do the airports, and do the rail lines. The moment he made that statement, talking about the high-speed train in China, talking about the 8,000 Boeing planes they had to purchase from Boeing in USA at a go. I said, but why would you get all that? Oh, the population is big here. Oh, okay. But why all these things where there are no people? Then I linked it home. I said, oh, so that's why HH and his friends are improving airports in all the provinces. Now I understand. These friends of ours can't see anything. They left Kasama Airport as a gravel, and they are not ashamed. Now, those of you who are saying you're not fixing, go and check the state of Kasama Airport. And as we speak, Proflight has announced March, they're beginning to land there. What does that mean? They will recruit more workers. And when they get more people flying there, they make more money, they pay more taxes, you have more CDF. You have more children on free education. You have more children being recruited as engineers, being recruited as soldiers. The numbers are growing. The economy is growing. My mother can have more empowerment. The market loan facility that has been introduced can now go up because you have more people paying. You have government has more money to empower more citizens in the country. And it's being done in a graduating manner. Your own, as opposition, your own MPs don't agree with you. Go and see Sunday Chanda. Kanchivia, since you are targeting 2026, in 2026, will never be the same. And you think those people will listen to you with what I'm seeing on social media? I've not been to Kanchivia. I told the comrade Sunday Chanda on the page, not in the inbox. I told him I would want to visit Kanchivia. You would think it is getting to a stage where it is going to be one of the best cities in the country. Go and ask Munduvile. He's my friend. You will be shocked why he's spending his time in the constituency. The whole CDF for last year has been paid. I told you that, Zach, that we had by-elections. 5 of them, they were recruited, they were PF. They don't agree with you. If you ask them today, they will tell you, Mwana, I had to dump the position of a councillor. I'm now a teacher.
Can I give you some messages?
Now, for messages.
Yeah.
You have this message that you said on the generation. We're always talking about, no, we have high taxes. This is generation. Yeah. This is what happens when you can't check facts. Are you sure? What is the tax threshold now? For a salary, it's over 5,000 this year. I don't know where he's getting the figures from. Products, most of the products have been zero rated, including agro inputs. You know that you don't pay anything. Those importing these electric cars is duty free. Hybrid has been reduced. I don't think these youths can explain anything worth taking the country forward. It is another generation of rooters. If you can't get simple facts, I was just from telling you, saying employment levels have become very high. I just gave an example which is simple for an ordinary citizen to understand, that there were 120,000 applicants when UPND took over for education alone. Last year, from 120,000, it came to 65,000 applicants. Now, the numbers that are being recruited to you, what do they mean? These are simple things that you can't understand. So I want to mention that there's a lot that has been done which you cannot see. And you know very well that a person is getting 4,800 kwacha is zero tax. A person who gets more than 6,800, somewhere there about. More than 4,800. This time it's over 5,000, of course. Then you can go to 20%. These have revised. 5,000 kwacha, my friend, generation lead, was initially at 35% tax. This is what I'm saying, that when you say, no, youth, let the youth come in, are you going to get these youths that are ignorant like this? It's an embarrassment. You're talking about minimum price has become very high. At what price did it go to? It was found at 37 kwacha. It rose up by over 600%. It has never happened in the history of this country. In the cost of minimum today is not even above 50%. The cost of minimum today, Zach, I'm sure you're following.
Yeah.
37, if you want to calculate this over 600%, 100% of 37 is another 37. So how many 37s, when Kamgiri was saying minimum in Kabwe is 280, how many 37s go into 280? Where it had gone to? That was in 2018, 2019. In other words, the price of minimum was messed up a long time ago, not now. And I want to repeat myself. Zach. Munga ndaga na mkwate nkongole. Ubunga bula chepa. Ifya kufuala tabashita. Amalaiti bambo kupibisha. The country was left in a mess. That debt has not been removed from Zambia. If you think that's what has happened, it is still there. And now that is still there, you have to make adjustments in order to qualify to restructure. And certain decisions must be hard decisions to make. Your president goes ahead and says, even buying brand new vehicles for all the ministers, we are going to use the ones they were using under PF. You've seen the Ministry of Vehicles looking, some of them are behind, and they're still moving. I was looking at a vehicle at a minister, Zachariah drives, with a bumper one side, it is out. So I was laughing at him. Then he said, Mark, we have a responsibility to run the country. I agree with the president. There's no need for us to rush for these things. If we buy personal vehicles and they stay for 10 years, why should we dispose of vehicles when they are able to move? So I want to say this, that we must be fair with one another. The mess is so huge, nobody says we are not fixing. I've demonstrated the fixing already, which has been done. And I'm saying 10 years mess should not be done in less than 2 years. It's asking for too much. But fundamentals clearly indicate we are getting somewhere. Even a person visiting Zambia will tell you, oh, we are getting somewhere. Okay? That does not mean there are no challenges. Challenges will be there. The difference is how the government responds to those challenges. What measures they are putting in place. I belabored to explain what measures government has put in place to reduce the price of minimum. And people agree with him that indeed having ZNS as a vehicle will help us. Indeed, in providing a credit facility under Ministry of Agriculture, so that even those that could not till land, but they have the money, they had no money, now they have the money, are able to plant maize. Because our biggest enemy right now, as we are speaking, we are only about 3 things. You're talking about fuel, you're talking about minimum, you're talking about kwacha. But what about employment? Why are you ignoring it? If people are being recruited, there's an advert which was going on under local government, which you were not doing. Why are you not complaining? If Mopani is getting a boost, why are you not talking about it? If CDF is all paid and all your MPs have disappeared, you're not finding them in town. They are supervising projects there. Why are you not talking about it? If your own people, councillors, are being recruited, which you were not doing yourself, at that time, whoever was the opposition was not recruited. We are in a state where your own councillors will resign after they have been recruited.
Let me give you...
Meaning the process is blind to whoever it is.
Yeah, let me give you an interesting thought from a gentleman called Sichilima.
Yes.
Yeah, Sichilima says, morning, Zach, and morning, Max Simuuwe. Zach, I have the problem with that man's analysis. If we want to restructure debt, it means we are trying to finance our debt. Now, where I have a problem is, in his analysis, he says, after we manage restructuring, then the government is going to improve more in CDF, employ more people, pay retirees, among others. From the little knowledge that I have is that where you finance debt and the money you realize from such from such is used into consumption, such as socio-economic activities, which means that there will be nothing that will be achieved. I thought after restructuring of our debt, we were going to be talking about coming up with capital projects, which the government will raise resources to now finance the debt and not these CDF empowerment programs. The CDF empowerment programs which he is talking about. Capital projects such as the energy sector, mining, and among others, not only thinking of mines being run by foreign investors. I think if the UPND researcher can talk like this, then we are going to have a problem as in what information they are generating from findings to help the government. The danger will be restructuring the debt and taking resources into socio-economic programs on the expense of capital project. Moreover, this restructuring will be simply push the debt forward, which in time of the current president governance period, they would actually not pay anything. Then others who will come. So in short, he's saying, you've pushed this to 3 years. 3 years is probably when your 5-year mandate is done. And if you are out, it simply means that as UPN, you would not have actually paid the debt. So it is such analysis that are not helping the government. Analysts need to bring out information as it is and not sugarcoat. When energy costs, such as fuel, goes up, all products costs, even the same ZNS production will go up. All right. So do you expect the prices of the prices to remain the same? In conclusion, I want Mr. Simuuwe to point out just 4 cooperatives that have actually been empowered by CDF and have started contributing to government achievements to economic growth and are contributing positively to the government. And China's democracy cannot be compared to Zambian democracy, which have elections every 5 years. China have a lifetime president. Please let his analysis be checked.
Okay, I think that is a lengthy message. So
It
I
is.
would request through you that you don't read another one. I deal with it.
Please, and we've got very few minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let me start by debt restructuring. What is debt restructuring? Debt restructuring is basically changing the terms of the loan. For example, they borrowed money that they have, part of it that they have to pay back Nenkongole at 30% interest. And that particular Nkongole, some of it was due in 2020 and they defaulted. Do you get that?
Yes.
You're not dealing with a current debt. You are dealing with a crisis. They defaulted. So now, in debt restructuring, what are you trying to do? Number one, you are trying to change the terms of the loans by, instead of focusing on defaulting, you say, can we suspend the servicing up to a later date? When you are servicing, this is what happens. I thought he was following. When you collect the revenue, you heard Dr. Balanangando saying 50% of what you are collecting is going to debt servicing. It means you remain with very little. The economy cannot grow. You have very little money at home. Let me give an example of a household. Ngachakoba tumule for 100,000 kwacha. I mean, 2,000 kwacha panganda. Then you are owing 5,000. And on a monthly basis, you are asked to pay 2,000. I mean, 1,500. You remain with 500 kwacha. Then your monthly budget, I hope you are following.
Yeah.
Then your monthly budget is 1,800 kwacha. You have a huge deficit. And then you remain with 500 kwacha. The deficit is 1,300. Meaning, in that budget, certain things will not be done. Those are the things we saw under the PF. That's why you could see that they could not do certain things. Do you get the point?
Yeah.
Now, what debt restructuring will do is that it allows you to breathe. He's talking about consumption. Let me demonstrate to him. Government deliberately decided to come up with the agriculture, fisheries, and livestock under a sponsorship. And 13.8 billion kwacha was approved for the same work. Now, he's asking us that, I'm sure he has not been following, even the budget presentation. Just last year alone, 2022, we had 112 artisanal miners that government has taken up under the initiative after licensing them. Okay? Now that is a boost. He's saying not in mining alone. You have heard the president talking about agriculture. We have 30 million put in agriculture as a credit facility. That is not consumption, my brother. When you have saved money and you have agreed with credit facility, official creditors that you suspend the debt and you change the debt conditions, you are able to get the money that you should have used to service the debt and now make it as a credit facility for farmers. That is the 30 million your friends are getting. Don't call it consumption, it's an investment. Agriculture is an investment because when you put in something, you get more than what you put in. What is consumption is that when you put in, afterwards you get nothing. I hope you are following.
Yeah.
What is consumption is that when you put in, afterwards you get nothing. The offtake agreement is being signed with FRA. When they give you 70,000 kwacha, you produce that maize. You are selling at a profit to FRA. You are not making a loss. It's not a charitable organization. How did you manage to save that money when the previous government could not save? It's because you've managed to negotiate with the official creditors and you are able to play around with the few resources that you had. Contrary to what Dr. Bwadanganda announced, that 50% is going to debt servicing, 40% to salaries, 10%. Government is running on 10%. That's why they could not pay salaries. That's why they had to shut down Inden. They had no money to revamp Inden. It was reconfigured and it's able now to refine ethanol from sugarcane. It was reconfigured at a cost. Government is able to save that money. Government now is able, instead of going to debt servicing, is able to get the money and provide free education. Free education is not consumption. This is the difference between themselves and ourselves. Education is an investment. That is human capital. China did that. He's saying don't compare. That's how they behave. When they want to get a good view, they want to compare. Then when something is good, you want to compare, then it's wrong. Even in research, there is a comparative analysis. At least I've lectured the course for more than 5 years. Okay? There's comparative analysis, and you provide a personal critique on the findings of related research works that you've done versus your research topic. Okay? So there's comparative analysis. You compare. We are not going to fall in that blackmail. Okay? The next thing that I want to say is that apart from that, these empowerment projects that you are seeing, where people are providing chickens and so on, the president finding a market access in United Arab Emirates, and then citizens are getting money from CEC to produce avocado, into there. It is because, my brother, that is an investment. And then the next thing is fisheries. On TV, almost every week, you are seeing Dr. Kachaka going around fisheries of people that have been trained. When they harvest that fish, where do you think they take it to? Those are simple things to explain. And then the next thing that I want to bring out is that where you think that there is consumption, there is productivity, because citizens are being helped. It is not a hand to mouth. That's why the Ministry of SMEs was established. There are SMEs involved, if you've been following the news. The next point that I want to bring out is on issues relating to grants from cooperating partners amounting to 3.4 billion, which translates into 2% of the national budget, secured through prudence and demonstration of fiscal discipline, so that this money now can be taken to other empowerment projects. We are not giving people money in order to go and buy meal. They are running projects. When you hear them say, I have a piece of land and I've applied, I've bought tractors, that's an investment. It's a lifetime investment. Under CDF, where you're saying that is consumption, I feel pity for the person who actually published this. How can you say training someone how to do carpentry from a mere grade 9 is consumption? Because you give him a skill, and today they're able to produce desks. When they produce desks using local timber, they are supplying to schools and they're earning a living. Is that consumption? So now, I've been talking about China investing in human capital. That's what they did. So human capital is basically empowering citizens to stand on their... Then the next thing I want to bring out, just wait a minute.
I want to give you the last messages as we conclude.
But this is lengthy, like I mentioned.
I know it is.
There is an issue of other capital projects that I want to talk about. So I'm saying don't pay retirees, don't what. the government is there to ensure retirees are paid. It's very important. Retirees, they have worked for their money.
So
In case you didn't know, let me explain.
Yeah.
Pack it. I want you to see the reasoning of that message. When you pay a retiree, he has a piece of land. He will produce agro products like maize, like vegetables, which the country is going to feed on. That is a capital project. You are looking at capital projects in terms of those that can generate profit. This is what I'm trying to talk about, not infrastructure only. Okay? Also infrastructure, like the airport. It opens up for tourism in Kasam. Northern Province has areas for tourism, which they can actually relish on. Tourism contributes a considerable amount to the national budget. He doesn't know that. That's not consumption. It has corners to it. In addition to that, I just gave you an example. When an airline goes to land there, opens a flight, they are recruiting more workers. National airports will recruit more people there. They'll produce more money. The next point that I want to bring out, on the same empowerment projects.
So in the meantime,
Mhm.
I've got Chilufya who is listening from who is following this conversation from the UK in Leicester, to be precise, who says he was here in Zambia when all those promises that the UPND were making made, and now he says he has family members who went to vote overwhelmingly for HH, asking for help now. So he's being asked for help from relatives who went to vote for HH overwhelmingly. And he's wondering, because then he thought this was it for him. I mean, the country will be okay and everybody will live better lives.
Okay.
And he asks the question, do Zambians know the definition of inflation? Can we have an answer to why the pound is nearly 40 kwacha? Tell him, I used to be a Labour voter back in the UK.
So
I started voting for the
40 kwacha? Okay.
Yes. So obviously from the UK, he's looking at it from the pound point of view. So tell him that I used to be a Labour voter and I started voting for Tories because of Deveron, right? I am voting Labour this year. So basically he is saying he doesn't have answers. He doesn't know why promises versus what is going on now.
Okay.
Where has it
gone wrong? No.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think Bachilufia, thank you very much. Just where you are in UK, Bachilufia.
And I've got a bit of news coming through where I'm being the police are actually planning on room Dr. Kambwili's residence and the PF Secretariat. The source indicates that police are actually planning to do to
Dr.
conduct
and PF.
Yeah, and Dr. Kambwili's residence and the PF Secretariat for vehicles, among other things that are being. So it appears the press conference. Well, this is now what is being thought. It appeared the press conference by the opposition leaders yesterday unsettled the UPND and the president Hakainde Hichilema. Hence, these planned actions on these citizens. Is it true also?
Now,
look, there's also a question coming through. Is it true also that government blocked Kambwili's evacuation?
Thank you. The issue about you and I are seated in the studio. Someone has sent you a message, not so?
Yeah.
We are not aware. How do we react to something that is not official?
Yeah.
You and I have been in the media for a very long time. We can't react unless there's an official question. We verify it. If you want to swim in the mud in a discourse of this nature, get a message and react to it. We must be aware. They can send us pictures, but where do you get the official statement? Police themselves, they will tell you.
But did you treat the press conference that was held yesterday with the seriousness it deserves in terms of be good listeners? And
you're asking me the same question differently. I don't want to succumb to propaganda because that is an opinion someone believes. Okay, police are free to conduct investigation. Come with, for example, was arrested, convicted, and then appealed. If it has happened and we are not aware, we will not react because you and I don't know what it is. How do we react to what we don't know? How? We will be embarrassing ourselves. So until we have established what it is that they are looking for. then we can react. Now, if we link it to yesterday's press conference, was Kamwiri part of it? I mean, it's disjointed. So the next I want to raise that where someone says it unsettled, it is the role of government and those that belong to the ruling party to ensure that they defend their position. To defend your position, you're not unsettling. You're not unsettled. You are clearing the air where someone has lied. You say it is like this. Because people play in the hands of propaganda. But we are not going to be twisted in that manner. It's blackmail, my brother. We are blackmailing each other by jumping to conclude that that press conference unsettled. We are simply reacting. We are doing what is supposed to be done in a democracy. When they say something, we react. Unless you are saying, because we are reacting in a manner that we are demonstrating certain things, then it is wrong. Because what else on the other side who spoke yesterday don't want to hear. It's such a discussion. Because it unpacks everything. When I tell you that you are not paying council workers, now they are being paid. They don't like that. When you tell them that you are not recruiting, we have recruited more than 70,000 in 2 years. You're not. Then let me go back to Chilufya before I lose it. That Chilufya, you're asking that do people understand what inflation is? If you have not been following current affairs in the UK, just last year, the government there was crying over double-digit inflation. In case you are lost, they were crying over the cost of fuel, and the reasoning there on BBC of swelling cost of fuel is not the same, Bachilufia. You have relatives here, but be sincere to yourself. 60% of what Europe consumes, including where you are, UK there, was coming from Russia. This is happening there. The effects are there in the UK. We follow closely, because you don't know. Double digits inflation. When Zambia was single, you were in double digit there. In other words, the cost of food stuff in the UK have gone up. We have relatives there. There is Kenny Simuuwe where you are. Not only him. Even the cost of accommodation, you can't compare it to Zambia. It's higher, my brother. That's why when you are getting paid there, the money that you get paid there, from the Zambian context, it looks more. But from the UK context, you spend more there. I think we need to put matters into perspective. Let me get back to the issues.
Well,
He's
let me first of all,
but you've pushed something. He says he has family members who are here and they are asking for money.
Yes.
We cannot use a single situation to justify that things have collapsed. You must first of all itemize the failures, then you start ticking one at a time. Okay? Then you use the 3 things and then you claim they have failed. Then how much will Edgar have failed? Since number 1, you rose the price of minimum from 37 to 200 something. Number 2, you stopped employing. Number 3, there was bloodshed. You were not in control of the country. Number 4, you were killing citizens. Number 5, you were retiring people in national interest based on where they come from. Number 6, you closed indefinitely, meaning people lost jobs. Number 7, you went and closed KCM through liquidation. Over 7,000 lost their jobs. Those are families. Number 8, you went and destroyed Mopani. Number 9, you abused borrowed money, making it very difficult for the lenders to give you money. They even withdrew social cash transfer. Citizens are the ones that suffered. The next thing is we are now busy on rampage arresting whoever you thought you needed to arrest. Your friend spent 127 days in prison for no offense committed. All students of law, you tell you what an overt act is in a treason matter. So I want to be very clear that we can obviously do better as a country when it comes to national debates. Not that we are averse to criticism, but that facts must be put into perspective. Not that we are refusing that there are no challenges. Challenges are there. What we cannot subscribe to is to claim that the mess of 10 years can be resolved in 2 years, because then that's the propaganda that people are using. Then the next point that I want to bring up, this also goes to Chilufya. Chilufya, even in the UK, where you are, in the space of 5 years, how many prime ministers have resigned? And what was the reason? There is a lot that they have failed to do there. They have resigned.
My executive producer gives me
an extra
time.
Very good. How much time?
We just have 5 minutes now.
5 minutes. I thought
he gave
15.
15. He gave 15 from 12 hours.
What do you want us to use that 5?
So this 5, I would like us to probably start concluding.
Okay. Now, the same man who promised you free education, and it has come to pass, is telling you that we are putting in place a long-term measure to resolve the minimum crisis. The same person that promised that you people of Ndoa give us the mandate, we shall reopen Inden and run it better. And it has come to pass. And over 1,500 workers got back their jobs. And he's also saying this issue of fuel is a passing phase. The same person who told council workers that instead of beating you up and unleashing cadres, we shall run the country prudent and ensure that we pay you all the arrears and we shall pay you on time. It has come to pass. The same man is saying, look, this issue of kwacha losing value is a passing phase because you reduce the production of copper. We are bringing back more production of copper so that we can export more copper to attract forex into the economy. When we have more forex, then kwacha is going to improve. There is no magic to it, but this is a process, and all of us have to follow this process closely. In the absence of this process, nothing is going to happen to kwacha because there should be an activity to attract it in the country. No wonder we are getting more things to be done in the country so that we can export. More agro products to be produced in the country so that we can export, to attract more forex. More to be exported by ZNS in DRC to attract forex into the economy. These are the fundamentals that we are doing. And they say we shall come to pass. The man who said, when you retire, 3 months after retirement, we shall ensure you are paid. What does he do? It was done last year. That when you retire, within a short period of time, you are given the money so that you can reinvest that money. Then he also goes and says you can also have partial withdrawal so that when you still have the energy, we don't wait for you to grow gray hair and start bending on walking. That's when you give you colossal sums of money that you have never handled. When you have run out of energy, we want to give you partial withdrawal so that you can invest it. When you invest it in a farm, you employ others. When you employ others, you produce more. When you produce more, you can supply to FRI. There's more food in the economy. We can sell and export outside the country. We have more revenue to pay for more who are getting recruited in the education sector and many other sectors. The one who said we shall ensure that Mopani is back, we are seeing activities going on there. He's also telling you that a few things that are happening now have been acknowledged, and we know these are challenges. They will be resolved. So we should never lose hope. The country is under control. Don't believe in people who failed grade 10 times to tell you how you can pass grade 10. It will never happen. They are not able to provide solutions. Running the country is serious business. That's what your president told you. And we shall get there as a country. There is order right now. In town, it doesn't matter who commits an offense. UPND equally, officials and members are appearing in court. This should make you happy. Access to information bill for those of you in the media. An issue that many presidents failed to enact because they didn't want to be checked on how they are spending money. The president was brave enough, together with his cabinet, to make sure that it was passed. You have also the Debt Management Act enacted so that we can have a framework, not chipante-pante, on how to manage debt in the country. And most importantly, the fuel crisis is not about Zambia because Zambia does not produce fuel. It is about the whole region. And I want to repeat, in Zimbabwe, it is over 40 kwacha per liter. In Malawi, it is over 40 kwacha per liter. In DRC, it's over 40 kwacha per liter. When did they revise? When did it go up? That is what is happening in the world. I should have expected the man from the UK to tell us that fuel is cheap. He comes to tell us about the relatives. That's not right. Now, but this is exactly what I'm talking about. I should have expected him to tell us about pound against the dollar. And what is happening in many currencies and inflation there. I've just told him that there was double digit there. Go online, all of you are listening. You'll find double digit and it was a debate in parliament. And what was the explanation of government? The Ukraine situation. And he doesn't want us to explain in that way. What kind of reasoning is that? We should expect that when people are exposed to such countries, their levels of thinking must change. And they help the country they are coming from fairly. Thank you.
Simuuwe, thank you very much for coming. And of course, we can only wish you all the best. And we will definitely be having these conversations as time goes on. And once again, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Great. And thanks to all the listeners who followed our conversation and also our partner radio stations. And that's Tuta FM, iWave FM, Muchinga Radio, Spice FM, and of course, Wave FM in Mazabuka. So from all of us, it's take care of yourselves and more so of each other. Bye-bye for now.
Tune in next week for another edition of The Burning Issue, and thank you for your participation.